Sup guys? As we approach the month of July, the next season of research trips are just around the horizon. In this video, I'm going to be sharing the heuristic I personally use for choosing research projects. Depending on how new you are, you might not have the resources to spare for research on top of upgrading equipment, uncapping ships, and saving cubes for event-limited ships, and in that case, I will suggest you start taking free research for the time being until you get into a groove where you have enough gold to fund your research consistently. As such, my recommendations will not be a guide for resource management, but rather which projects you should choose to optimize for whatever you're trying to achieve with the research system. I will be mostly referring to research projects by their resource and duration as to not confuse you with their names. Also, as a quick side note, you can click on these icons in-game to see what exactly each project can drop. Now, when you do research, you need to decide on what your goal is going to be. Do you want to maximize the number of equipment blueprints, in particular, rainbow blueprints? Or do you want to complete development of research ships as soon as possible? Or perhaps you want to maximize long-term gains? Actually, that's not really a goal in itself because eventually you will develop all ships through the occasional projects that drop ship blueprints, events, and catch-ups, so focusing on long-term would just be the equivalent of pure gear focus from the start. But ask yourself this: do I really want to finish developing my ships half a year later than everyone else and not be able to play with them, just so that at the end I can say, oh, what's that? You only have 5 rainbow guns? Well, I have 7. Anyway, enough talk. I'm going to start going into the strategy, starting with gear focus. Whether you want to start with equipment focus from the beginning of a season, or only after you finish developing ships, everyone will eventually want to optimize for equipment at some point. The most important project that you must always tick is the 30-minute equipment project that takes 20 purple plates and 5,000 coins. It is also so exceedingly rare that it's probably worth spending the coins taking this over something like limit breaking a ship if you had to choose between the two. After that, 30-minute phase research, which costs 5 cubes and 5,000 coins, are also worth taking. By phase research, I'm referring to projects that have the icon of a research ship on them. They are rare enough that I generally consider them to be worth taking, even if you don't have cubes, but I'll leave it to you to make your own judgment based on your situation. With the 30-minute researches out of the way, we move on to the more commonly available projects. As far as equipment is concerned, the most important are the rigging analysis, aka plate research. If you had the choice, then taking the 1-hour plate research every single time will net you the most returns per hour, but due to the fact that you are not guaranteed to see another 1-hour plates after the first one, it is better to take the longer projects. Taking a 4-hour plate project is slightly worse than chaining 4 1-hour plate projects, but not by much, and it removes the possibility of having to take random, worse projects after completing a 1-hour one. The same logic applies to the 2 hours compared to the 1 hour. In any case, out of the commonly available projects, these are the 3 that you're going to want to take whenever they're available. After the plate projects, I recommend the 4-hour gold data collection projects. For these, I usually just auto-search Chapter 13 3 times without reading what the requirement is, since Chapter 13 satisfies all 3 requirements. I don't think there is enough data on this project to be certain, but in my personal experience, it is not far off the 4-hour plate project. Depending on how convenient it is for you to meet the requirement, it can be a great choice, or too much of a pain to be worth it. For me though, it is definitely always worth taking, and sometimes I'll even take it over the 1 or 2 hour plates if there are too many short projects in my research queue and I need to go to sleep soon. After data collection is the collection projects, aka scrapping equipment. There are 2 variants, Scrap 15 or Scrap 8. The Scrap 15 is naturally going to be the better of the 2, and not too much worse than the plate research. Scrap 8 is a bit worse than all the projects I've mentioned so far, but it is nonetheless essentially free and quite fast, so it's better to take this than something else. You can easily find equipment to scrap by scrapping ships or enhancing ships, or even just opening some pink or blue equipment boxes. After the scrapping projects come regular coin projects, in particular the 4-hour 6,000 coins one if you can afford it. It is quite expensive but worth taking, and if I'm sitting on a lot of gold, I will often take it over even the scrap 15 projects, but not the 4-hour data collection one. The rate of equipment drops from this project is pretty much as good as the drop from 4-hour plates, but there is one thing which sets it apart. While the 4-hour plates, as well as the gold data collection projects, have a chance of giving you bonus equipment blueprints, the 4-hour coins project instead gives bonus ship blueprints, making it slightly worse on average. The 1-hour 30 and 2-hour 30 coin projects are the next best options. I would take the 1-hour 30 just for a faster refresh in order to be able to take better projects. After that, there are the regular face projects. These projects are guaranteed to drop the ship blueprints of the ship they display, but they also have a chance of dropping equipment as well. The 2-hour 30 projects are no different from the general 2-hour 30 coin projects, so I use them the same way, and the 5 and 8 hours are just worse because of how long they take. I would not recommend taking the 8-hour one at all if your focus is equipment, and the 5 hours is a last resort if there is nothing else to take. For projects which I have not mentioned, there are the free projects and commission projects. They take too long and the reward to time spent is simply not worth it at all. Since I have enough cubes, I would rather take a 1-hour cube research with a 0% chance to drop equipment blueprints instead of a 6-hour free project. I would not recommend doing so if you do not have an excess of cubes though. To quickly recap, I prioritize 30-minute rigging, then 30 minutes face research, then 4-hour plates, then 4-hour data collection, tied with 2 and 1-hour plates, then 4-hour general tied with scrap 15 equipment, then scrap 8, then 1-hour 30 coins, then 2-hour 30 coins tied with 2-hour 30 face, then 5-hour face, and if none of those are available, then I will either refresh my queue or take whatever is the shortest available option. Next, I will talk about how I would go about prioritizing ships. By far the best projects to take are the 30-minute face projects, but they are extremely rare. After that, there are the general 30-minute cube projects that cost 8,000 coins. While this one is the second best, its cost is a bit high relative to its return, but time-wise, it's still a must-take over any regular projects. Even if you're rushing ships, I would still recommend taking the 30-minute plate research as well. While they do not give any ship blueprints, they are relatively quick and you will eventually finish developing your ships, so you should take them as they appear. Moving on to the regular projects, 1-hour cube is by far the best if you're aiming to finish all ships. With that being said, if you take too many of these, your cube stock will decrease, so keep that in mind and try not to dip too low in cubes to the point where you start missing limited ships. Also, these will give you no equipment blueprint at all, so be prepared to be significantly behind as far as equipment blueprints go. 2-hour cubes doubles the cost and price of the 1-hour cube projects, but has barely any better returns, so I personally avoid it. 4-hour cubes is even worse. After cube projects, you should take the DR face projects, then PR face projects. For face projects, I would focus on the shortest one in order to get more cube projects. After face projects are the coin projects. Strictly speaking, for ship blueprints, it's better to prioritize the shorter ones to get more cube projects, but I personally prefer the 4-hour one for its balance between equipment and ship blueprints. Between the coin projects and the 2-hour cubes though, the 2-hour cubes is preferable only if you have excess cubes. After that, gold data collection is not bad, but past that, I would just take the shortest plate research to refresh the research queue instead of taking free or commission research. If you want to target one specific ship, you should switch the priority of face research of that specific ship with cubes, and take the longest face research where possible. Keep in mind that this will put you significantly behind for the other ships. To recap, for ship focus, you should take 30-minute face projects, followed by 30-minute general cube projects if you can afford it, followed by 1-hour cubes, then DR face projects, then PR face projects, then coins or 2-hour cubes, then data collection, then choose the shortest available option to refresh your queue. Personally, I will tend to look at the new releases before deciding on what to focus, and I do try to finish my ships relatively quickly before moving on to equipment research. Following my strategy, this is my haul from PR5 onward. Before PR5, there was no research queue and I did not sacrifice any sleep for research, so I only got about 2 to 3 rainbow equipment per season. Since PR5, I've gotten almost 11 completed pieces of rainbow equipment, averaging to just over 2 months per equipment. I definitely do not have the most, but I think it's a good enough amount where I don't feel like I'm missing out on much gameplay-wise. I did not start the season focused on equipment, so it is definitely possible to have maybe 3 to 4 more pieces of rainbow equipment than me, with total dedication to equipment research and better luck. Okay, that's pretty much it for how I go about prioritizing my research in order to achieve the results I want. There are no 100% confirmed rates, so I don't think it's possible to know what the most optimal way to do things is, but this is what I've done and has worked well enough for me. I hope you were able to learn something, and don't be afraid to experiment to make sure I'm not bullshitting. Feel free to share your strategy as well if it differs from mine and results in similar or better gains, but I will not vouch for every comment left by a random person. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.